With MSNBC's Kevin Fry on Capitol Hill, where lawmakers are facing growing calls to end the shutdown. Kevin, what's the latest?
Yeah, I mean, this is a very dramatic call from that union of federal employees representing hundreds of thousands with a statement today saying, among other things, that it's time for our leaders to start focusing on how to solve problems for the American people rather than on who is going to get the blame for a shutdown that Americans dislike. Because when the folks who serve this country are standing in line for food banks after missing a second paycheck because of this shutdown, they aren't looking for partisan spin. They're looking for wages that they earned. They go on to essentially say that Congress needs to pass, in their view, a clean CR. Now, when Speaker Mike Johnson was asked about this today, he certainly kind of leaned into this. In fact, we saw several top Republicans on the House side take advantage of this statement and basically point to it, saying, Democrats, the ball is in your court now, whether or not you decide to act on this. Johnson saying, I certainly hope this is a turning point in the shutdown, noting that this is a union, after all, that is weighing in this sort of way and saying that this shutdown is a charade. Now, of course, at the same time, I have in recent weeks spoken to Democrats representing districts with heavy populations of federal employees, and their message that they say they've been receiving from federal workers was keep up the fight, that health care is the fight worth having, that it is an important time to push back on the Trump administration. Of course, as this continues to drag out, as we see federal employees now missing paychecks, will that start to change? We shall see this week when lawmakers start to return. The Senate comes in this afternoon. They're expected at some point this week to vote again on that CR to reopen the government. And members of the House Democratic Caucus are going to be here as well, so we'll be polling them too.
Boy. So we got to talk about the pressure piling up on Democrat politicians to fold on this Democrat-orchestrated government shutdown. And I'm here to tell you guys that the most basic and effective IQ test right now, currently, that you can give one of your friends or your family members or your neighbors or your coworkers, right, is who are they currently blaming for the shutdown, right? Anybody that is blaming Republicans for the shutdown right now probably is not a very smart person. Let's be real, okay? Because Republicans have a clean continuing resolution on the floor ready for Democrats to vote for. The same continuing resolution that they voted for like 4 or 5 times, right? Multiple times under Joe Biden. Now all of a sudden they're saying we don't want to vote for that because we're trying to fight for healthcare, right? What they really mean is that they're fighting for illegals to get healthcare and for more subsidies to make healthcare more affordable, because turns out the so-called Affordable Care Act, aka Obamacare, did not make healthcare more affordable. And I'm here to tell you, those subsidies are not going to make healthcare more affordable either. And we're going to talk about that. But again, the pressure is piling up, okay? Because as you guys saw at the beginning of this video, you now have the union for federal workers coming out and saying, hey, Democrats, okay, we get it, right? That, you know, you're playing these games, but honestly, you need to sign a clean continuing resolution, which again is currently on the table for Republicans, okay? Republicans have voted like 13 to 14 times for the government to open back up with a clean continuing resolution, and Democrats have voted against it more than a dozen times. But for whatever reason, they are gaslighting the American people into believing that somehow, some way, this is the Republicans' fault. Now, again, the pressure is going to pile up. I'm not sure how long Democrats can keep up with this charade. I mean, to give them some credit, they held out a lot longer than I thought they would. Maybe because this shutdown, unlike past shutdowns, the debt ceiling is not attached, right? So it's not like the country is going to default if Democrats refuse to cooperate. So I think that's the reason why Democrats are holding out. But again, now you have individuals, a lot of Democrats, a lot of voters who are dependent on welfare. They're going to start missing some of their food stamp payments, right? They're going to start not being able to feed themselves unless they get a job. They can always just, go get a job, right? But outside of that, yeah, they're not going to be getting their food stamp payments, and federal workers are going to start to miss paychecks, okay? They're not going to get paid, and that is creating a lot of stress, okay? Because Democrats said that that's the point. They want pain. They want as much pain and suffering as possible. If planes have to crash, then so be it, according to Democrats, because stopping Trump, stopping Hitler is more important to them than people feeding themselves and planes flying safely in the sky. Take a look.
And here's a look at delays as they stack up right now. Overall, there have been more than 1,500 delays so far just today.
CNN aviation correspondent Pete Muntean is joining us right now. Pete, take us through the fallout from these staffing shortages.
Well, we just heard from the FAA that they have implemented delays just now for flights going into and out of LAX, which was hard hit over the weekend by some of these staffing shortages. More on that in a second. We have to remind you that air traffic controllers have been working without pay for almost 4 weeks now. The shortages typically get worse in evenings and on the weekends. And this weekend we saw the biggest spike of staffing shortages since the start of this shutdown. Friday through Sunday, a total of 50 air traffic control facilities were short-staffed. Remember, there are only about 300 towers, approach controls, and centers nationwide that are operated by the Federal Aviation Administration, meaning this weekend saw 1 in every 6 FAA facilities without enough staff. It all spelled some serious problems for those traveling by air. It's top of mind for so many right now. Perhaps the worst problems at LAX over the weekend. To keep things safe, the FAA implemented a ground stop on Sunday that lasted nearly 2 hours, and then the delays started to pile up. LAX ended the day with about a quarter of all flights in and out arriving late. I want you to listen now to Dan McCabe of the National Association of Air Traffic Controllers, who says union members are always under stress, but now more than ever with their first $0 paycheck coming in tomorrow.
The thing we have to really look at right now is where's the breaking point? We have a very young workforce. This is a workforce that may not be financially set up yet. And like I said, everyone has a story. Some people may be spread thin. Some people may have some savings. We don't know that. But what we have to look at now, where is the breaking point for each individual? And that stress is absolutely unnecessary on top of what they're already doing.
The FAA has a term for these staffing shortages. They are called staffing triggers. And here is what the list looked like on Saturday night. The longest list we have seen since the shutdown began October 1. Our analysis shows there have been 260 of these since the start of the shutdown. That's more than 4 times bigger than the same period a year ago. I've said it before. I'll say it again. This is likely going to get worse before it gets better. Controllers got that pay stub in their emails of what will be the $0 paycheck that comes tomorrow. We will see as things go. And so many people will be flying this weekend because it's Halloween. So this is top of mind for so many travelers right now.
All right, y'all, quick break from the show because this is important. Look, we talk a lot here about standing up for yourself, not letting big corporations, the government, or anybody else push you around. But what happens when real life hits, car accidents, workplace injuries, medical mistakes, and suddenly you're the little guy going up against a massive insurance company? Well, that's where Morgan & Morgan comes in. There's a reason reporters never run out of breaking news. Just like there's a reason Morgan & Morgan is America's largest injury law firm. They've recovered over $25 billion for 500,000 clients with more than 1,000 lawyers nationwide, and they're built on one simple idea. For the people. That means when you're hurt, you don't pay them a dime up front. They only get paid if you win. And trust me, these big companies have teams of big lawyers working against you. You need somebody just as powerful fighting for you. When you hire Morgan & Morgan, it's like hiring a legal army that has your back. If you're injured because of somebody else's negligence, you deserve to be paid. So if you've been hurt in an accident, at work, or anywhere in between, don't roll the dice alone. You can check out Morgan & Morgan. Their fee is free unless they win. You can start your claim now by clicking the link in the description or by scanning the QR code on screen from your phone's camera. Because at the end of the day, protecting yourself and your family isn't just common sense. It's conservative values in action. Yeah, so you see that, you heard that. The pressure is mounting on Democrats. And they're having a hard time defending their current position because, again, anybody with 2 brain cells that rub together knows that Democrats are the ones that are currently stopping the government from being opened up, okay? And this is why they're struggling in interviews when confronted by some of these news anchors on why they continue to hold out on simply just signing the continuing resolution and deciding to negotiate on everything else, right, that does not have anything to do with the government being open. Why can't they just do that? And yeah, they're struggling to defend it. And that's how you know that the pressure really is starting to mount on Democrats. We're going to see how long they hold out. But like I said, they're not doing a good job at defending their position. So without further ado, let's get into this interview that is so frustrating that Joe Kernen decided to shut it down due to the fact that this Democrat is making absolutely no sense. So let's get
a bill. Senator Johnson had a bill. Did both of them fail to pass at this point? Have I got that right?
Yeah, I mean, actually, ours didn't even fail to pass. The Republicans refused to hear it and let it to the floor. Instead of debating it and actually putting to a vote, they stopped it altogether. And our bill was actually very clean and simple, which is give everybody, every employee that's a government employee right now that is not being paid, pay while we work this out.
The other bill, I guess the criticism, did you agree with that from Democrats that it gave President Trump too much leeway on which ones to pay, or why did that not pass?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, because it gave the president the power to decide which employee was essential or not. And let's be honest, this president is quite temperamental. He acts like a child. He's very petty. And if you give him that power, he would use it in a petty, temperamental, childlike way.
Yeah, which is what Democrats are doing right now, right? Because, I mean, let's be real. Democrats are acting like children when it comes to this shutdown. They're the ones who are refusing to vote for a clean continuing resolution because of Trump derangement. I can't think of anything more childlike than that, what Democrats are doing right now. They're literally saying, hey, you need to sacrifice your paycheck. You need to sacrifice eating in order to stick it to Trump. That, to me, is childlike behavior, in my opinion.
Senator, I guess the critics of Democrats would say it's similar here. You're talking about a clean bill. The continuing resolution is a clean bill, a clean resolution, same as the one that was in March. And all along, it looked like that was going to be sufficient to get enough votes to pass. And it's just not.
I'm sorry, Democrats to who?
Democrats are demanding negotiation. They're demanding negotiation on other issues, on more appropriations.
No, we're
stuff.
demanding a very simple thing. We want to make sure that Americans, 24 million Americans, do not see their insurance premiums doubled. In Arizona, we're talking about 500,000 people that are going to see their insurance premiums doubled, in addition to all the inflation they're dealing with right now. 4 million Americans are likely just to not buy health insurance. That's the demand here. I think what you're talking about are just like the other points that Republicans try to do to distract from the fact they're about to raise the premiums on 24 million Americans.
Well, they're not.
Yeah, Republicans are about to raise the premiums, but yet Democrats are the ones, when they first passed these subsidies for Obamacare, which, again, by the way, if Obamacare is so affordable, right? If the Affordable Care Act made healthcare affordable, why do you need the subsidies? Again, these are pandemic-era subsidies, okay? I have not heard anybody explain, articulate, why is it that Obamacare is not affordable? Why is it so unaffordable that these subsidies are necessary? But the reality here is that it's not Republicans who are taking away the subsidies, because Republicans never voted for it in the first place. Democrats are the ones that voted to make the subsidies temporary. You guys are the ones that say, hey, we're going to make these temporary. We're not going to make them permanent, partly because this very reason is so that they can use it as a political tool in order to hold the Republicans in the country now hostage, right? That is the reason why they made it temporary in the first place. Also, on top of that, the cost associated with it. They know that, hey, if we make it temporary, then we can say on paper that this stimulus costs less, right, than it actually does. But again, Democrats are the ones that made that choice. So you're the ones that chose to take it away when you passed the bill in the first place.
By not extending it, it would go up. But what's the 1.5 trillion, Senator? You could extend those for 1 year. You could extend the Obamacare subsidies for $40 billion. For 10 years, you could do it for
right,
345. You're asking for 1.5
I'm sorry, are you an insurance broker? I'm sorry. Are you an insurance broker? Are you an insurance broker?
That's not germane to this, Senator.
Yes, it is germane, because 1 year, we don't know what 1 year does.
Are you an insurance broker?
No, but I actually understand why I would first go talk to them, right? The reason we just don't go for 1 year, this is my point to this, is that for 1 year, the premiums may not set at the point that it's not going to raise premiums to double what we're worried about. Now, if we actually go and talk to insurance brokers, we talk to the industry, we talk to insurance regulators, and say, for 1 year, if you say extend the program for 1 year, insurance premiums won't double, absolutely, right? This is all about keeping costs low. That's the one thing I focus on, so I think Democrats are focused on. What we don't want to do is put ourselves in a situation where right now, where inflation is high, cost of everything is high, food, housing. We're now seeing auto loans, the largest amount of default ever. We're not going to go and just summarily just raise insurance premiums on Americans when we know that there's a smart way for us to do it. Now,
here's the thing, right? And again, this is why it's so tough to be a conservative, because you have to actually break this stuff down and explain to people why is it that what this dude is advocating for, which is more government spending, subsidizing healthcare, doesn't actually lower the cost of healthcare. It's not going to lower your premium. It's going to lower the premium for certain people who receive the subsidy. However, that doesn't mean that overall premiums are going to go down. Premiums do not go down. They actually go up. The reason why they go up is because anything that the government subsidizes is going to cost more money, right? Because essentially the government has said, we're willing to tax the American people who pay for this, by the way. This is why it's not free. These subsidies are not free. The people who pay for it are taxpayers. And the people who do not receive the subsidies are the ones who foot the bill, okay? So again, the Americans who are receiving the subsidies, yeah, they may be paying less on paper, but overall, Americans are paying more because of the fact that costs are continuing to go up due to the fact that the government is willing to literally subsidize healthcare for people who don't work, okay, for illegal immigrants, right? When the government is just willing to pay an unlimited amount of money to subsidize an industry, costs do not go down. That is the main reason why we've seen inflation in the higher education realm. Why is that? It's because of the fact that the government is willing to literally give an unlimited amount of money to these colleges in order to educate people, and that drives up costs, right? There is no incentive to bring down the cost of anything when you have the government saying, hey, we will pay for it no matter what. It's the same thing happening in healthcare. And that's what people don't understand. That's what they don't realize. Somebody is footing the bill, okay? One group of people may get the subsidy and they may, quote unquote, pay less. But again, the people who do have insurance, who are working taxpayers, you're footing the bill. Because you're paying higher taxes, and on top of that, because you have insurance, they're going to charge you more, right? These hospitals lose money when the government comes in and says, hey, we're going to pay for the healthcare, but we're only going to pay a certain amount. Guess what? The hospitals say, well, you know what? We got to make up for it. So they go to the insurance companies and they say to the insurance companies, this is what we're going to charge, because the government is not willing to pay us enough to actually cover the cost of healthcare for, again, illegal immigrants, uninsured people, people who don't work, who are unemployed, who actually don't need healthcare subsidies. The government is not willing to pay us enough for it. So therefore, we have to charge people who are insured more. And insurance companies say, okay, cool. We're going to pass on those costs to those who are insured. Okay. And again, I was red pilled on the healthcare system. I used to be sympathetic to leftist arguments when it came to healthcare, but I had my own experience that really showed me how much of a scam this actually is. I went to the doctor and they literally said, hey, we're going to charge you 50% more. We'll charge you 50% more than we would have charged an uninsured person due to the fact that you have insurance. And when I argued with the administrator on why is it that you're charging me more simply because I have insurance, he said, well, you got to subsidize the system for those who can't afford it. You got to subsidize it, right? And I'm like, how is that fair? How is it that I work, I pay for insurance, I do everything right, everything correctly, and I got to subsidize the system for everybody else? And again, I have no problems subsidizing the system for the elderly, for the disabled, but I do have a problem subsidizing health insurance for people who don't want to work, people who make bad decisions, illegal immigrants, uninsured people. I do have a problem with that. And that's what people don't realize. Socialized healthcare is a scam. It is a huge scam. And this is why Republicans need to grow a backbone and to just repeal the whole damn thing. Repeal Obamacare, get rid of it. Open up competition in the free market. Healthcare was affordable before Obamacare, but the government came in and distorted the market for people who don't want to work and illegal immigrants, and now everybody has to pay more, right? Everybody's paying more. Premiums are going up. The reason why Obamacare did not make healthcare more affordable is because the government subsidized people who do not contribute to the system, and that drives up the cost for everybody, okay? That's what people got to understand. These leftist arguments on healthcare are wrong. Okay, they're incorrect. It's a scam. It's a huge scam. It's a giant redistribution scheme. It is a wealth redistribution scheme designed to be so bad that eventually people are forced. They're forced to say, well, you know what? Maybe the government should just take over the whole healthcare system. We need universal healthcare. But the government is the problem, because if you get your universal healthcare, guess what? Somebody's paying for it. You're going to be paying 50% in taxes, okay? You're going to be giving up half of your paycheck for universal healthcare, right? But hey, it's free. It's free, right? It's free while I wait 6 months for an MRI, right? But it's free though. It's free while you pay 50% of your paycheck. Even if you are middle class, okay? You give 50% of your money to the government, but hey, it's free. Again, this is a scam. It's a scam.
I'm not saying there has to be a full extension. I'm not saying that we actually have to give everybody the same amount of premiums, subsidies that we have in the past. But we have to actually think about this in a smart, tactful way, so that way Americans do not see their insurance premiums double. So someone just throwing out, well, let's just do it for a year. Like, we don't know if that's the case. It may have to be 2 years, it may have to be 3 years at a minimum, so that way there's at least an off-ramp for Americans so they don't actually see their insurance rates jump.
What's in
right
the
now,
1.5 trillion? You could do it for 10 years, Senator, for $345 billion. What's in the 1.5 trillion that Democrats are demanding to open the government? And this is unheard of.
We're not demanding anything. This is just a Republican.
Yeah, you are. You are demanding that the Republicans get rid of the reforms to entitlements and the big beautiful bill, which would add 1.5 trillion to the deficit. That's exactly what they're demanding. Again, this guy is full of it. He's full of it.
So
all I want is for the ACA to be extended.
All you want is healthcare for illegals. That's what you really want. Let's keep it 100. That's what you really want.
For Americans, so 24 million people do not get their premiums doubled. That's what I'm asking for.
For how long?
I don't care. We can do a CR. We can keep it as long as we can negotiate with the Republicans. If the Republicans can come up with a good plan that is, again, does not give permanency, I think that's gone. Look, Republicans control the government. There's, the White House, Senate, and the House of Representatives. I have to actually deal with that reality. But what I want to make sure is that Americans do not suddenly get a huge bill starting January 1st. And that's
don't you need to open the government to negotiate? Don't you need to reopen the government to do that? If Republicans shut down the government next time Democrats are in charge to extract whatever it is that they happen to want, are you saying that's okay? Are you saying that's okay if they do that?
I mean, the Republicans have done this quite a while, yes. Yeah,
what did you say about it? What did you say about it when they did it?
I don't know, and I don't care. What matters is, again, about 24 million Americans. What I care about, 24 million Americans, 24 million families have an opportunity to actually live the American dream, have their insurance rates doubled overnight because the government refuses to act. Again, we can negotiate right now. By the way, how can I negotiate? The president's in Asia for 5 days. Johnson's basically keeping his the House of Representatives out till January to stop, and protect pedophiles. So who am I negotiating with right now? The person I'm talking to right now is everyday Americans who are worried that they're going to have their insurance rates doubled overnight because Republicans refuse to act. So they're screwing up on tariffs, they're raising inflation, and now they're going to go ahead and raise your premiums.
The Republicans are refusing to be blackmailed and held hostage into what Democrats want. Mike Johnson doesn't need to do anything.
Democrats, that's what I want is 24 million Americans. I want 24 million Americans to have inflation. No,
okay,
24 million Americans want their insurance. Want healthy and affordable insurance.
I appreciate it.
You too. Have a good one.
Okay.
Have you back.
Again, a waste of time. A waste of time. A waste of time. Might as well shut down an interview. Again, because talking to these people is like talking to a brick wall. There's only so much propaganda you can take, right? At one time, it's like, bro, you're literally just making up things, okay? At this point, right? Again, if Obamacare was so great, if it made healthcare affordable, right, which is what the name was, right? If it made healthcare affordable, why is it that you need the subsidies? Why do you need to extend the subsidies? These subsidies came about during the pandemic. We're not in the pandemic anymore. You don't need them, right? But again, Obamacare has been a disaster. It's been an absolute disaster. And that has been the main takeaway, in my opinion, from the shutdown. Democrats admitting that their signature piece of legislation has been a failure for what they claim that is intended to do. Notice the pattern here. The American Rescue Plan did not rescue this country. The so-called Inflation Reduction Act did not reduce inflation. The Affordable Care Act did not make healthcare affordable. You notice the trend here, right? It's almost as if whatever Democrats call their legislation, that is the exact opposite of what the legislation is going to do, right? In reality. It's funny how that works. So anyways, let me know what you guys think. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Most importantly, share a Black conservative perspective. Peace.